Hello and welcome to Gumbo's Flying Circus, and for this video I thought we'd have a look at formation flying, as people tend to have issues with this, and I thought it'd be a good idea to have a look at it and see how I do it, at least, so maybe you can take away some tips for helping you improve and to get better at those types of skills necessary for flying as a 2-ship, 4-ship, flying with a tanker, for air-to-air refuelling, and various other things. If you want to do aerobatics, start getting into it. So I'm just heading off towards the tanker now. He's 11 miles ahead, so I've sped up. Now, your first port of call is to do with your controls. If when you push the stick forward you can't get a tiny little movement like this, so it's nice and smooth, then it's going to make formation flying a lot harder, and it's going to make tanking a lot harder. The reason being is if you're trying to make small corrections, and the corrections are very small, they're like this, and you're doing this, you're going to be struggling all day long, and no matter what you do you're never going to be able to do it. So, you know, like in the real aircraft, nice and smooth, varying degrees from the very small to the very large. So you might want to add some curves if you go into the control settings. If we adjust controls, and then you can go to axis commands, find, say, for your pitch, and you've got that set to the joystick. Go to axis tune, and you've got curvature here. I turn off dead zones. And you've also got curvature, so you can add curves, 20, 30, whatever it takes for your particular controller, until you can get that smooth control going with those small little inputs. Will help you out no end. So I'll just get on course for the tanker here, because I thought the tanker would be the nice and easy. It's a big airplane, and for when you're practicing formation, at least, just get up next to the tanker, and it's a nice big huge airplane to start learning from, or to help you improve. And the first thing you want to do is learn how to control your rate of closure, your closure rate. Now obviously if you're too fast you're not going to be able to slow down, you're going to shoot past them. If you're too slow, you'll never catch them up. So I've got 472 knots. I know that this aircraft tanker is doing around 305 knots, and I want to come up onto his left hand side. People usually find the right hand side easier to start with. So we know we're 2.5 miles away, and we can see him getting bigger. I can start slowing down now slightly, just to help with that, and air brakes can help as well. So he's doing 305. Now when you're learning this, you don't need to be the Red Arrows or the Thunderbirds. You can take your time and just experiment with the throttle, trying different closure rates. If you know his speed, you can experiment to what will help you get used to getting close to the aircraft you're trying to formate with. So let's switch to the right side, because that's probably where you're going to want to be when you're learning. People tend to find this easier, so I'll just show from this. But as you can see, the controls that I'm using are very small. I'm putting out some air brake now, watching that speed coming off. And you see I've got 335 knots, and my closure rate is meaningful, but it's not to where I can't control it. And I'm not using speed brake, I'm just putting the throttle back, getting to understand his speed. So those little inputs are kind of helping, because if I was doing too big, I'll be going up, down, left, right, up, down. You just want tiny little smooth movements, not massive ones, which people tend to do. They panic and all the rest of it. If you're not in shape, if you're struggling to get it under control, just hold back, come back a bit, don't get too close, and reset and try again. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the picture between the aircraft and my aircraft. So you can say, for a reference, I want that engine on the right side, that nearest one, on his nose, and you can just move yourself until you're into that position. Just slow yourself down, or maybe just behind the US Air Force there. Or you may decide, I'm going to put that wing tip just behind the cockpit. So you're just coming up, making tiny little adjustments to where it's just there as a reference. I'm just holding that picture, using the difference between your aircraft and the aircraft you're formating with to judge your position. But as you can see, I'm making very tiny adjustments to the throttle and to the stick to try and just keep there in this formation. Now, for references, if you're with another player and you're in both in F-16s, one reference is you can put your head by the nozzles, beam the nozzles of the other aircraft for a position like that. And you'll be pretty much where you need to be, like this. As you can see. But the smooth controls, the tiny controls, are really what makes this much more easier. And then it's just practicing, staying with him, learning your throttle control, and just getting those tiny movements right. So if you judge the other aircraft by this aircraft, a reference, say along here, and you're looking at this, I can see that I'm getting closer. He's coming towards here because that gap's shrinking. So I can just take a few measures just to null that out by using a bit of bank to the right. And you're nicely in, staying in within that box of where you need to be, depending on the formation. You know, there's the references generally come across here and across down there, so you're then in that space at a certain distance. So you can do close formation, or you can do a formation where you're much further away. And you can just judge where he's going and just try and match his speed. You can see from the side of this screen to here, he's moving away that way from me and forward from this side of the screen. So you know you're a bit slow and you're on the wrong heading. So you can just make a tiny adjustment there until you see him stop moving. If he's coming back, you're too fast. If he's going forward, you're too slow. And then move in again. You know, when you're practicing, you don't need to be aerobatic master of the universe. You just need to get used to controlling your aircraft around other aircraft in a straight line, just to get used to this formation. Using the throttle, using your stick, keeping your eye on what he's doing, because your whole world is that tanker right now. When you're in formation, that other aircraft is your entire world. So when you're doing a turn like this, you can keep it in line, you don't need to go up high, and just judge your bank doing the same technique to where he's either falling back, moving forward, or you're getting too close or too far away, and just turn that bank in just so you can stay with him in a loose formation or a close formation, similar thing. You don't need to panic. Don't judge it on his wings, because the wings will have a much greater bank angle because of how long they are. Judge it more on what your aircraft is doing in relation. Or you can come up slightly like this, just pitch up, keep that bank so he's not going too far away from you. Control your throttle, try one thing at a time, and sooner or later they'll all come together. So you can be up, so he looks like when you're up here, like you're flying straight and level with him like he does then. And you just keep that, make sure he's not going forward, make sure he's not coming back, make sure you're not getting too close. So he's moving back a bit, he's moving backwards, so I was going too fast. So I just changed my throttle a little bit. I'm rocking it back and forward just to null that out. And this skill takes a while to get used to get good at. See, look, he's moving back, so I'm going too fast. So I'll just change that slightly. It might be a bit low, so we'll just slight bit of pitch on, just to change that picture of how the aircraft looks next to me. So I'll put a bit more bank on, a bit more pitch, bit of throttle there. So he's getting away from me a little bit, and then bring it back. So I'm kind of following that wingtip, and I'm following his fuselage, and I'm rolling out and descending back down, whilst maintaining that view on him until I'm where I want to be. And off we go again. And this is good as well for tanking, because if you can do this formation with a tanker, all of that is what you need to know, so that when you're tanking you just need to be a bit below. You would move in, stay out of the wake from the engines and the aircraft, be a bit below him, and you can judge where you are in relation to the tanker there. So if he's moving away from you, you know you're too slow. If he's coming back over your head, you're too fast. If he turns, judge it on his fuselage, not his wings. tiny little inputs on the throttle, on the controls. Get yourself into position. So you can tell that you're moving a bit too far forward. You're watching your aircraft in relation to the tanker. Keep an eye on the HUD, so you're going HUD, tanker, or looking in the middle so you can see both at the same time. If you can see, he's just above my HUD, his nose, so I need to maintain this kind of position, or I might need to be closer depending, using the lights, etc. But you can get the idea from a formation point of view, just how delicate you need to be. So you would be about here, and you can judge whether he's getting away from you, whether you're getting too close to him. But he'll be moving forward and back. And if you keep that nice, really small, tiny amount of control, you'll be able to stay with him. And it's all about flying that formation, so practice that. Don't worry about the boom, don't worry about getting on the boom. Just try and get yourself into these different formation positions and staying with him, and keep going until it becomes nice and smooth. Tiny little controls, don't need to flick the controller. If you've got it nice and smooth, you'll just do tiny little fractional inputs. Just slightly up, slightly down. I'm making slight little corrections all the time. Without going full metal jacket on the thing. You don't want to be doing this and then this and then this and on, forward up and forward back, and it's very tiny adjustments that you need. Because then you can start doing things like going underneath, pulling over to the other side, you can kind of judge where you are and what you're doing. Trying it on the left. You don't need to be right on top of him. I mean, here's about the position we were in roughly, just at a different distance based on those engines and that US Air Force sign. You can say, oh, the engines were just behind that sign, so you're about here. And then try and get used to doing the same thing on this side. As you can see, using a tanker makes life a lot easier to practice just this simple kind of getting used to staying with him. And you can also use references on your near your HUD. So you could say, right, I want to be here. I'm going to keep this picture of where he is in relation to my aircraft. So you can see he's getting, as he's moving up and down, you can make slight adjustments. You keep that picture, keep him in this box here. Don't get too close. Just have that imaginary box there. And just keep him where he is. And you want to practice your closure rates first and adjusting the throttle, because that's very important. Just tiny little adjustments. Just watching him in relation to yourself. Look, you've got too close, so he's outside of my box that I had here. So I know I need to slow down. Let him go forward slightly. See, he's moving away. I've got him in this area of my canopy in relation to my HUD, etc. So there's a barrel flea here. Now I need to stop him going away from me or coming too close again. So I'm just keeping in that imaginary box where I know it's a goodie. But it really is all about these small tiny control movements, which is definitely worth practicing as much as you can. And off we go. So anyway guys, I hope you found that useful. I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about formation flying and what to practice and look out for from a practical point of view. All the theory in the world is great and worth knowing, but it's not until you get practical experience of actually doing it and understanding how all the controls work together will you ever become a master at that and be able to tank. And the more you do it, the memory becomes part of your skill set, and then you'll be able to start flying formation with your lead in missions and doing other things and staying where you need to be. So anyway guys, hope you found that useful. Take care of yourselves, enjoy your DCS. See you again at the next one. Ta-ra.
Thank you for watching another Gumbo's Flying Circus live stream. Don't forget to join the Discord channel. Like, share, follow and subscribe for regular updates, chat, screenshots and more. Your kind support is always greatly appreciated. See you next time for another Gumbo's Flying Circus live stream.